What we're witnessing currently is a major Bitcoin trap, and I want to cover that in today's video and show you why this dump that Bitcoin is seeing, the amount of fear that Bitcoin is experiencing, is all just a fugazi, and it's all, or fugazi, and it's trying to distract you from the primary objective. So stay tuned until the end of today's video. Guys and girls, make sure to subscribe. I'm super close to hitting 50,000 subscribers. It would mean the world if we can do that this month. And with that said, let's jump into the short-term price action for Bitcoin and then continue on into the macro analysis. So first thing is first, Bitcoin broke down from the symmetrical triangle to the levels that we talked about on yesterday's video, and we're seeing a small bounce, but I think people are concerned that this dump is going to continue happening and further extend to the downside. My maximum pain scenario is that Bitcoin comes down to the massive inverse head and shoulders breakout resistance and test it as support, and also close the CME gap at $77,000 100%, because we didn't do that. And that would be around the mid 70s. And actually, if you go to the liquidity chart, the M2 money supply chart, when you overlay the price of Bitcoin on top of the M2 money supply, or Bitcoin over the M2 money supply, you can see that there is room for Bitcoin to come down all the way to the mid 70s. But I don't see Bitcoin dropping any lower than that. And what I would do is, if you want to be buying Bitcoin for cheap, I would A, certainly do it personally right now. And B, you could set a bunch of limit orders for Bitcoin all the way down to the mid 70s. But I do not see Bitcoin going below mid 70s at this moment in time. Of course, that can change, but so far I find it very unlikely for Bitcoin to do that. And the second chart is that Bitcoin will likely go and jump to the $85,000, $86,000 level in the immediate short term, because there is a CME gap to the upside, and Bitcoin likes to close these sooner rather than later. The only time where Bitcoin doesn't close them is that when you see a massive jump in the price where you're going parabolic to the upside, or you're crashing pretty heavily, and then you create that CME gap, which is hard to come back up to because the price has fallen so much over the weekend. And that's super uncommon. And that is why I think Bitcoin will almost definitely have that bounce to 86 within this week. But now let's get into why it is super important for you to understand that this dump is a trap and you need to be buying as much as possible. The first thing is, when you look at the average Bitcoin seller, and if they're selling Bitcoin for a profit or for a loss, you've come to the place where now, instead of profits, people are selling their Bitcoin for a loss. And when you see that transfer from profit into selling, you can see that that is basically when Bitcoin traditionally likes to explode. So there's a period where there's distribution and everybody's selling, taking a profit, but at some point there starts to be an exhaustion, and the smart profit-taking distribution switches into emotional fear, and people panic sell. When you see that conversion from smart people selling Bitcoin for a profit to fear, then that is the time where you usually mark a bottom for Bitcoin. In fact, we just had you can see there that there's a blue dot. And when you see that blue dot, it's usually a very good time to be buying on the SOPR scale. The last time we had this was right over here when Bitcoin was at the 50s. Then you had it at this drop, and also in the 20s, and most oftenly and frequently when Bitcoin was at 15. And we're getting early signs that Bitcoin is bottoming at the SOPR, famous Bitcoin chart. So that is one very bullish reason for you to, even if you're not timing the exact bottom, to be getting in now into Bitcoin before it is too late. And of course, we're still in extreme fear. So 20 extreme fear. If you want to be a smart and diligent investor, you need to buy when there is fear and blood in the market, and then sell when there is euphoria. So right now, definitely a time to be buying. And going back into the M2 money supply, I told you that there is usually a 75-day delay or a 10-week lead on the M2 money supply, and Bitcoin falls behind that. But the true reasoning for Bitcoin to pump or dump is just simply the global liquidity in the world. The fundamentals of Trump buying and pro-Bitcoin administration, you can see that, yeah, all of these things kind of seem to be the reason why Bitcoin pumped, but it was really because of the M2 money supply. And it's more evident with the news on Friday in the press conference that nobody seems to care, right? Markets only move based on the amount of liquidity and the amount of, therefore, buying pressure is against Bitcoin. And right now we're about to see Bitcoin follow M2 money supply again. It's just going to take a few weeks, but we're coming to the very bottom of where Bitcoin can possibly go. Again, mid 70s is probably the max pain point, and then from there we should see a bounce. Don't try and catch the bottom, usually never works. So I would again say that buying now is probably the smart idea. When you look at the value of the dollar is capitulating. Very ironic. You would usually think that tariffs should have strengthened the dollar, but it doesn't appear to be that way. And the dollar is seeing the second highest fall, second highest drop since I believe it is 2023. But I think now that the drop is extended even more to a point where we haven't seen this big of a drop or this big of a Dixie change in percentage over a 1 week time since like 2022, 2021. And that usually marks the bottoming for Bitcoin. You can see on this chart very clearly that when you do see a massive change, percentage change on the value of the dollar, that usually marks the bottom for Bitcoin. And it's usually a great buying spot. So the fact that we're at this level at $82,000 is pretty bullish. So another reason for you to consider buying into Bitcoin. Of course, if the dollar value falls, you're trading Bitcoin against the dollar. So as the dollar value goes down, the asset that you're trading it against should, in theory, go up. And it's a very, very good early sign that Bitcoin is late. And the fact that it's late gives you an opportunity to get in before it pumps. And look, that's an abysmal chart when you go to the value of the dollar. Another reason, keep on coming up with reasons for you to buy Bitcoin. So the Fed is going to cut rates very soon. In fact, there is a 37% chance that in July, no, this is the American system. I confuse it always. In May, there is now a 37.2% chance that the Fed does decide to reduce rates. And then going down into potentially July, you can see even rates at 3.75%, and then potentially even lower towards the ending of this year. If rates go down, more economic stimuli, therefore Bitcoin goes up, and also massive, massive altcoin season. Another reason for you to add not only to Bitcoin, but also to your altcoin holdings. Guys, look, the only sort of bearishness here is Peter Schiff saying that he's buying a Trezor and doing a strategic reserve. So that's like the only anomaly. That's the only bearish sign that I was able to find. But apart from that, it's all looking pretty good. Strategy is deploying a new strategy where they're going to hopefully buy 150% of all the Bitcoin mined by miners for the entirety of this year. So when I said that there isn't, maybe I said in this video or maybe a previous one, but when you look at the direct buyers of Bitcoin, yes, you have institutions, yes, you're going to have countries at some point, but most of the driver of liquidity comes from the retail investor. The reason why the price dropped on Friday after the White House conference is because, yeah, it's super bullish that Trump is going to create a strategic reserve, but they're actually not buying yet. So there isn't direct buying pressure. But in the next 2 months, the US will accumulate Bitcoin proactively. And once they do that, that is direct buying pressure from the market. So look, you have strategy buying, you have the US government buying, potentially other countries buying too, but that's still not clear. And then institutions will buy more, seeing that the US is buying, individual states will be buying. Those are all actual buying pressure. So now it's the speculation, now it's the sell the news time. But when the actual buying force is going to be taking place, that's when the prices will truly pump. And look, I just asked Grok a very simple search on the new deep search tool, which I find remarkable. It is genius. Like, AI will soon replace me, replace you. So enjoy these videos while you can, and make sure to subscribe because I'm trying to get to 50,000 subscribers by the end of this month. But yeah, you can see that I texted Grok saying that on average, how much Bitcoin is currently being bought net after the selling pressure compared to the new coins that are mined, to kind of calculate the net accumulation of Bitcoin on a daily basis and really drop down into the fundamentals. It took 2 minutes, did a massive in-depth search of 46 sources, and it's given me a very clear overview, quoting directly on-chain analysis from CryptoQuant and CoinGlass, which is beautiful. It shows you where it's getting its information from, and I know that those two sources are super reputable. You can see that there is currently an accumulation of 13,000, or in fact 1,370 Bitcoin per day, compared to the 450 new Bitcoin added to the supply. That's like 3x the amount of Bitcoin that's being mined, which is huge. And this is before the United States is actually buying Bitcoin proactively. And in the next halving cycle, well, there's going to be even less Bitcoin added to the supply. Another reason for you to buy, and another reason for the supply shock and hyper Bitcoinization coming much sooner than you think it is. And when you look into how much the US will really buy, well, they'll probably get some accumulation from the Sovereign Wealth Fund. But what we're truly expecting is in the next 4 years, the Bitcoin Act proposed by Senator Cynthia Lummis, this has to go through. and that will allow the US to buy 200,000 Bitcoins per year, which is truly, truly incredible. So guys and girls, with that said, I hope those were enough reasons for you to consider buying Bitcoin. And trust me, if you do, now, I mean, look, nothing in this video is financial advice, but based off of this information, you should do pretty well if you're hodling and if you're buying and accumulating. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you all on the next video very soon. Take care, guys, and as always, bye.